Good morning, students. I hope you all are fine. Today, once again, I start volcano chapter in a starting in an animated view. So please pay attention toward this video. Now start.
Now, volcanoes. Before we go to the volcanoes, let's learn what is volcanicity. Volcanicity is a process which involves the intrusion of magma in the Earth's crust or the extrusion of such molten material into the Earth's surface. The process gives rise to volcanic eruption. A volcano is a vent or opening in the Earth's crust connected by a conduit. Now, children, the meaning of conduit is a pipe from the mouth of the volcano where the lava comes out. It's a pipe to an underlying magma chamber through which magma rocks, lava, ash, steam, flames, and other gases are emitted from the interior of the earth. Temperature increases at an average rate of 1 degree Celsius for 30 meters of depth below the ground. At this rate, children, the temperature at the depth of a few kilometers would be above the melting point of rocks that you have already studied in your previous lesson. But we have seen earlier that high pressure makes them remain in the solid state. When the pressure is released through a deep fissure, that is another opening or cracks, the material changes to a liquid state and erupts to the surface through the fissure or pipe. Therefore, volcanic activities is of an intermittent nature. Now, what is volcanism? It is the process in which the magma is formed and moves towards the surface of the earth. Now, whatever activities which are taking place in the interior part of the volcano till it reaches the surface of the earth, that is called volcanism. Two types of volcanoes. They are intrusive and extrusive. Extrusive we will see in the next slide. Now, intrusive is whatever happens beneath the earth, that is at the earth's crust. Any formation which happens in the earth crust are right beneath the earth's surface. Children, when the magma cools down below the ground, the resulting intrusions take the forms of the crevices and fissures in the rocks below the ground. These intrusive forms may appear on the surface in course of time due to denudation of rocks lying above them. Children, if you look at the diagram given, the magma that seeps through the weaker rocks have formed into various shapes and further they are solidified. Each formation has its name. Now we shall see the different type of formation. Dikes. Dikes are intrusions of magma of vertical form. They are usually narrow but may extend several kilometers in length. Dikes are generally more resistant, being of igneous origin, than the adjoining rock, and they form long, narrow ridges. The second one is sills. Sills form where the magma flows horizontally and gets accumulated between two layers of rocks and thus solidifies. You may look into the diagram and see how sill takes its shape between the soft rocks. The next one is batholith. They are huge intrusions of coarse grained igneous rocks found when the magma cools and solidifies in an irregular shape. Their shape varies according to the accumulation of magma. They form the core of old mountains. They have no definite flow. Small size batholiths are called stocks. Now we go to laccolith. Now what are laccolith? It is large sill, but due to the accumulation of magma flow, it gets solidified in a form of a dome because of the hard layer of the rock above the flow does not let the magma seep through. So these are called laccolith. Now if you see in the figure, you can see that the laccolith has been formed in a dome shape because the top layer of the rock has not allowed it to seep through. So that's why it is accumulated in that particular layer of rock. The last one is pyroclastic deposits. What are pyroclastic deposits? They are nothing but rocks, hot ashes, and lava which flows and gets accumulated in layers, forming strata in the growth of volcanoes. Due to the high pressure, the rock and ashes are blown out and they settle on the surface of the earth. The second intrusion of lava which flows buries the rock and ashes beneath. This takes place in regular intervals and thus a volcano is formed. The next one is the extrusive forms. Now what are extrusive formation of volcanoes? Extrusive forms are those formed by the solidification of lava on the surface of the land. These volcanoes come in different shapes and sizes depending on how they were formed. Now there are 4 different formations of volcanoes. One is composite, shield volcano, cinder volcano, and Fischer volcano. Now we will see how composite volcanoes are formed. All composite cone, they are strato type of volcanoes characterized by alternate sheets of lava along with pyroclastic material. I had just explained to you what pyroclastic material is and how the volcano has been formed. The eruption occurs alternatively. Lava solidifies to form dikes. They are composed of more than one vent. That is, there are more than one pipes or kind of opening. The magma may escape through the secondary vent. The summit is pointed. The top of the mountain or the formation is pointed. The structure of the volcano is tall and steep-sided. These mountains are explosive and dangerous. The magma which comes out are viscous or thick. It creates more pressure, which in turn creates more explosive eruption. In addition, it does not flow for a longer distance. Instead, it gets solidified. Examples are Mount Fujiyama in Japan and Vesuvius in Italy. The next one is the shield volcano. Now what are shield volcano? Large quantities of magma are erupted and these spread over a large area as the lava does not get solidified near the vent. Like how we have seen in the composite, the lava gets solidified as it comes out and does not flow because it is thick and sticky. But here, the flow of lava is prominent. It flows for a larger extent. Okay? They form extensive lava plateaus due to the flow of lava which forms layers as it explodes. It does not grow in height. They are large, rounded with gentle slope, with flat terrain and cannot build up domes. Like how we have seen in the composite, those volcanoes are higher and steeper, but here they are flat in size. Understand? The lava contains basalt. Now what is basalt? They are nothing but the igneous rock, the grayish solid igneous rocks. Example for this are Mount Etna in Italy and Hawaiian volcanoes. Next we go to cinder cones. Now cinder cones, they resemble a composite volcano. Now if you see, the composite volcano has a narrow summit, but here also you have a narrow summit, but are smaller in size and are very common on the surface of the earth. They are 300 meters in height and have a steeper side. They have a crater at the summit. Cinder cones are formed by small rocks that are piled up on the top of one another. They do not produce stream of lava. It's only the ashes which comes out at times. Example, Hawaiian volcanoes and the Arizona. And both these volcanoes are extinct. The fourth one is the Fischer volcanoes. Lava erupts in cracks on the Earth's crust, which may be few kilometers in length to a few hundred meters. The lava flows in an area several kilometers in extent. It forms flat hills in a series of steps. Magma spreads on the surface, cools down as a sheet of lava covering the surface of the land. Eruptions at intervals leads to piling up the lava sheets one over the other, forming a series of steps. The best example of this kind is the Deccan Plateau, which is formed by the Fischer volcanic eruption. Now I have told you earlier what happened millions of years ago. Due to the tectonic movement, the land got drifted from East Africa and Madagascar. The Deccan eruption forced them to separate. Much of the eruption happened over India, and thus the Deccan Plateau is formed by the Fischer volcano. The area of lava flow comprises 2 lakh square kilometers. They are thick in some places. That's why we have minerals in different areas of Deccan Plateau in abundance. Some places there are more minerals, some places there are less minerals. Now we shall go to the classification of volcanoes. There are 3 classifications of volcanoes. They are active volcano, dormant or sleeping volcanoes, and extinct volcanoes. Now active volcanoes, they erupt often or every 10 to 15 years, found on all the boundaries of the continental shelf. They are found in the convergent and divergent belt and in hotspots. Now what are these hotspots? Hotspots are within the mantle where rocks melt to generate magma. They are not at the plate boundary. For example, the Hawaiian are within the Pacific belt. Now example for these volcanoes are Stromboli in Sicily and Mount Helena in US. Now these are active volcanoes. Now, what are dormant or sleeping volcanoes? Dormant volcanoes have not been erupted in recent years, but they can erupt anytime. They are otherwise called sleeping volcanoes. They are violent if erupted, and children, after their eruption, they become active again. Some volcanoes in the West Indies, Philippines, and Japan are considered as dormant volcanoes. They are otherwise called sleeping volcanoes. They are violent if erupted, as I told you earlier. They are found in convergent plate boundaries. Some of the examples are Mount Fuji in Japan and Krakatoa in Indonesia. The next one is extinct volcano. They have not erupted for thousands of years. When the plate passed over the hot spot, the lava solidifies and thus the eruption had stopped. Example, Mount Kilimanjaro and the Arthur's Seat at Edinburgh, Scotland. Now these are the extinct volcanoes. Now I'll show you some of the picture of active, dormant and extinct volcanoes. The first one is the active volcano, and below that is a dormant volcano. You can see that any time this particular volcano will erupt, and when it erupts it's going to be very destructive, and you can see that little houses and settlements there, so they are in a danger place. Now the next one is the extinct volcano, which is in Scotland, as I told you, the Arthur's Seat. You can also notice a crater there which is solidified, and now it's a land. It's a long stretch of flat land, and it's a beautiful tourist spot. Now we go to the world distribution of volcanoes. There are 500 active volcanoes in the world. They are mostly found in unstable and weaker crust of the earth. They are mainly belts of young fold mountains. This belt contains nearly 80% of the total number of active volcanoes. This is called the Pacific Ring of Fire because the active volcanoes occur along the margins of Pacific Ocean. The belt includes the Andes Mountains of South America and the Rockies of North America. A chain of volcanoes that can be traced through southern Alaska and the Aleutian Islands. It is one of the most active part of the world. It extends through the Andes, as I told you, up to New Zealand. Now the second one is the Mid-Atlantic Belt. The belt includes volcanoes of Mid-Atlantic Ridge. They are of Fischer eruption. The belt coincides with the Himalayan mountains which extend through Europe and Asia. It bends through the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and merges with the Pacific Belt. Example for this Mid-Atlantic is Mount Kenya, Hawaiian Islands and Iceland, and there are many more other volcanoes. The third one is the Mid-Continental Belt. They are mostly found between Asia and Europe. It includes Alps mountain along with Hindu Kush and the Himalayas. This belt of young fold mountains has fewer active volcanoes than the Circum-Pacific Belt. This belt coincides with the Alpine Himalayan mountains which extends through Europe and Asia, as I told you. Children, this belt bends southwards through the Andaman and the Nicobar Island and merges with the Circum-Pacific Belt in Indonesia. Now we go to effects of volcanic activities. Now there are two activities. One is constructive and the other one is destructive. Lava is profitable to man. Volcanic eruptions deposits lava and ash, which breaks down due to denudation to provide valuable nutrients for the soil. The soil thus formed is fertile and good for agriculture. That's why, children, it is profitable to man. Very fertile plains are formed also, like you have in northwest Deccan. Here we have the soil is very fertile here, and even in parts of Brazil you get very fertile lands. All precious stones are formed within volcanoes. Example, there are many other stones, but the most important is diamonds in South Africa. Geysers and springs are also formed here. They are important for medicinal value. Then you have crater which forms into lakes, and in turn they are the source of perennial rivers like Lake Volcanic in South Africa. They are also scenic beauty and a great tourist interest. And now you have many more in your book. So children, you can go through and see how constructive these volcanoes are. We shall go to the destructive part. Most of the latest volcanoes are barren and inhabitable by man. They cause complete destruction and force people living near volcanoes to abandon their land and houses.
I hope, student, you understand this chapter carefully. So read your notes and watch this video.